This is Mel Birnkrant speaking to you from Mouse Heaven with a new old video. 20 years after The Outer Spaceman ended and my time with Colorforms was over, I got a phone call from my old friend and former employer, Harry Kislevitz. This is my only photograph of Harry. Harry was calling excitedly because he had just met a toy manufacturer who expressed an interest in The Outer Spaceman. He asked me to send this individual some samples. Well, no way did I want to part with any of my few remaining outer spacemen, so in the course of a single afternoon I threw together this video instead. Nothing came of the effort, and so 10 years ago I posted the video in 2 parts on the internet. Then, last year, the publisher of the music, an obscure recording of a 1944 horror movie, complained to YouTube. In response, YouTube silenced the soundtrack of the second video. The following is an attempt to re-record the entire voice track of both videos combined, this time without music. I've also refreshed some of the images. So, if you're ready, let's begin. From the farthest reaches of our galaxy come the Outer Spacemen by Colorforms. That's funny. Until the finished samples arrived from the farthest reaches of Hong Kong, no one at Colorforms, except Harry Kislevitz and myself, even knew that they existed. They're here! 7 posable figures representing astronauts from 7 planets in our solar system. Little did we realize at the time that they were the first wave of a mighty force that would invade and conquer the toy industry, and in time become known as action figures. They were led by Alpha 7, the little green man from Mars. He was the smallest and the most popular of the group and sold for only $1, which was a magic price in 1969. Colorforms was afraid of Colossus Rex, the giant from the planet Jupiter, because he sold for $2. Each one was packaged, along with some sort of weapon on a card that featured actual photographs taken on their home planet, my loft in Manhattan. Before 1968, there had been only G.I. Joe and Captain Action. They were essentially dress-up dolls for boys. Then along came a new size figure, Major Matt Mason. Like other boys' figures, he was more or less on his own. You could take him to explore the moon or the backyard sandbox, and there was nothing there. That's how the Outer Spacemen came about. They were visibly intended to be used with Matt Mason. My first impulse was to make them his adversaries, but bad guys' toys had never been done before. I remember growing up during the Second World War when all games were war games. Even then, the only toy soldiers one could buy were American troops. So I don't know if it was fear or wisdom that made me decide that the Outer Spacemen should simply be astronauts, like Matt Mason, but from different planets, and let the kids decide if they were friend or foe. That globe emerging from the cotton balls of Venus was the lamp off our coffee table, and the 2 astronauts, seen in the distance, are here in my hand. And here's the complete set of 7 original Outer Spacemen, mint on their original cards. And these are the epoxy models from which the line was created and can be recreated. The arms were all sculpted in an outstretched position to accommodate a straight wire, which in the finished product could be bent into all sorts of natural-looking positions. Because of cost and shrinkage, previous bendable figures were always skinny. We overcame that problem by creating blow-molded inner cores. I never saw this method replicated. Here's my only set of unblistered cards, from which new cards can be generated. Here's something I found just the other day, the original drawings from which the first series was begun. I haven't seen them for 30 years. I forgot that I had worked out the colors right from the beginning. I'm amazed how close they are to the finished product. Here, long before they got their names, are Zodiac, Electron Plus, who was inspired by the man from Planet X, and Commander Comet. They certainly underline the fact that Matt Mason was our intended Earth astronaut. Here he is in person, actually mounted on the comparative-sized board. And what was really amusing to me after 30 years was seeing long-forgotten sketches of figures not chosen for the group. I can see why. Can you? Series 2. Harry and I were so sure we were going to be successful that before Series 1 was even introduced, I began work on Series 2. I'd gained confidence from the first series, and I was a lot more adventuresome in the second. They were more creative, more complex, more exciting, had more equipment, and some of them were pretty awesome. They even had features years ahead of their time. The man from Mercury's head lit up, and Metamorpho's face, distorted by a lens in his helmet, transformed into 3 different identities: nice, naughty, and horrid, and back again. Gamma X, the man from the 4th dimension, confounded perception with a multifaceted, multi-level body that double reflected in a mirrored backplate, and for good measure, he glowed in the dark. Here's the epoxy masters for the second series, everything necessary to recreate them. Hong Kong sent us 6 sets of finished samples for our approval. This is the last set that remains intact today. In 1969, man landed on the moon, and there was no one there. The entire world lost interest on the spot. One giant step for mankind proved to be 1 foot in the grave for space toys. Overnight, the toy industry declared space to be a dirty word. We quickly changed the name of the second series from Outer Spaceman to World of the Future in a last-ditch desperate attempt to disassociate them with space. But Colorforms ultimately chickened out and never placed an order for the second series. Here's the package back, showing all the characters in Series 1, and here's the same for Series 2. They were painted by Bob Engel, who was the cover editor for Newsweek magazine. I also designed a series of 13 Hot Wheel-sized vehicles based on our guys, each with a tiny figure driving it. These are Hong Kong's first rough clay models based on my drawings. They lay unpainted in my basement for years, until about 10 years ago I devised a method for creating unusual metallic colors using colored inks over silver and painted them. They were submitted to Mattel, who didn't care for them. But judging from the line of candy-colored Hot Wheels they introduced the following year, I guess they liked the colors. Had the Outer Spaceman continued, we planned to do all the superheroes next. Instead, Mego did them a few years later, and the rest is history. How the Outer Spaceman became a collectible, and the second series a fabled legend, and for a handful of collectors, the holy grail of action figures, is another story for another time. Oh, I nearly forgot. I have this 16mm print of the original TV commercial. And for that matter, lots of other stuff that would prove invaluable if someone wished to recreate the line again. Not the least of which is me. I can draw a lot better now than 30 years ago, and although I would no longer care to do it all alone, I'm more than willing to help. And so, we sent this video to Harry's friend, and never heard a word from him again. The video originally ended with an interview that appeared on TV one Christmas morning. I included it to introduce myself to the potential manufacturer. Here that ending will be replaced by an update that chronicles the Outer Spaceman's continuing adventures since then. So here we go again. Now, fast forward 30 years to 2008. That year, my pal and partner, Gary Schaefer, published an Outer Spaceman graphic novel. It is because of Gary's perseverance that the Outer Spacemen still survive today. The following year, Gary and the Outer Spacemen appeared for the first of many times at the New York Comic Con. And then, in 2010, from the farthest reaches of New Jersey, came the great sculptor Eric Treadway and the fabulous Four Horsemen. With the help of an amazing toy maker, Matt Dowdy, this fantastic team set about recreating the Outer Spacemen. This time, the articulated figures would be in a whole new size, one that utilized Matt's invention, the Glyos system, which made the artfully articulated parts interchangeable, so one could mix and match them to create an infinite variety of variations. When the Horsemen undertook this project, I believe they saw it as an opportunity to create their own interpretations of the Outer Spacemen. Instead, they found there was an unexpected factor included in the package, one they hadn't bargained for: yours truly. Initially, I proved to be an unwelcome art director, insisting that they recreate the Outer Spacemen as perfectly as the originals, plying them with overlays and showing them the way. Over time, we came to a mutual understanding, and working together harmoniously, the incredible Four Horsemen managed to successfully recreate the Outer Spacemen and bring them back to life again. In the end, I am convinced that the Outer Spacemen that the Four Horsemen recreated are every bit as good as the originals, and in some respects even better. For me, it felt like the past 40 years had simply disappeared, and the Outer Spacemen continued on right from the point they ceased to be in 1970. How good were the Four Horsemen's Outer Spacemen? Here's Tiny Alpha 7. I believe you will agree he's indistinguishable from his big brother. We see him piloting his flying saucer and standing on the rust-red sands of Mars. Here, too, is Astronautilus, deep beneath the seas of Neptune, looking every bit as beautiful as the original. Once more, mysterious Zodiac tunes his staff to resonate and play the music of the spheres, resounding through the infinite expanse of outer space, as he flies high above Saturn's majestic rings. And on far-distant planet Uranus, Orbitron stalks the barren landscape once again. Now behold Commander Comet, as he flaps his feathery wings and flies above the lofty cloud cities of Venus. Eric excelled himself on this one. The details of his face are just incredible. While on the farthest planet of our solar system, Pluto, Electron Plus electrifies us one more time. And finally, on the giant planet Jupiter, we encounter the all-powerful Colossus Rex. This awesome heavyweight proved to be well worth the wait, and this time he came equipped with an impressive array of transparent purple weaponry. But these 7 recreations of the planet Earth's first fantasy action figures were only the beginning. Thanks to the Four Horsemen, the second series of the Outer Spacemen also became a reality. From the fiery planet Mercury, we meet the flaming warrior Inferno, followed by the mighty Metamorpho with his visage metamorphosing exactly as before. And deep within the secret caves of Hollow Earth, we encounter Mistron, the most diabolical of the Outer Spacemen. Then from the twin star Agol, we meet and greet Gemini, inhabitant of the planet Mu. Now we head farther outward, and on the way we discover Gamma X, the man from the 4th dimension. He travels through the vast expanse of outer space by sliding secretly between the sands of time. Last, but not least, we come face to face with Cyclops, awesome giant from beyond the Milky Way, master of the all-seeing eye. Now both the first and second series were complete, but the Four Horsemen were not finished yet. With all the figures underway, Eric Treadway invited me to suggest variations to expand the line. Thanks to Glyos, such variations are easy to create. So after 40 years, I sharpened my pencils and pointed them at the stars again. I had a great time experimenting and conjured up a bunch of drawings. I started out a little tame, doing drawings of Alpha 7 that got increasingly strange, and ending with Alpha 1 Omega. Oraculus, the seer of Saturn, with his bizarre animated helmet, and Raging Inferno, a two-faced variation. Electron Plus, electrifying, followed by Electron Minus. Shocking! And this is Quicksilver, the molten man of Mercury. And here is Orphomatum, the evil twin of Metamorpho, with a whole new repertoire of frightful faces. Each one is more hideous than the last. I had a lot of fun with these. And then we meet Beelzebub, the demon from the blue light zone deep in the interior of Hollow Earth. Meanwhile, the Four Horsemen suggested that I create a special edition of selected outer spacemen, painting them in custom colors, the way I might color them today, 45 years later. The first set consisted of 4 figures: deep blue Ultra Nautilus, glowing in the magic hue of Neptune indigo. Metamorpho was rendered in bright silver and given the name Metal Morpho. The iridescent colors of his changing faces glowed. Next came Goldiak with a wizardly beard of gleaming gold and a golden helmet. And last of all, here's Blazing Inferno, a flaming creature made of fire, engulfed in flames from head to toe. This first set of Cosmic Creator figures were featured in an event in the East Village that the Four Horsemen called Future Retro. Here's the attractive poster that advertised the show, and a beautiful outer spaceman painting by Nate Barch. Meanwhile, Mattel's Major Matt Mason was long gone, and in spite of some rumors about a movie, he was not likely to return. Thus the outer spaceman needed an Earth astronaut, and we unanimously decided that he should be a woman. The name that came to me one early morning was Terra Firma. I invited Eric to create her, but he insisted that before he did, I should try my hand at drawing her and show him what I had in mind. So here she is, the first rough sketch. From there, he requested that I go ahead and design her seriously, and so I did. Anyone who's seen my childhood figure drawings would not be surprised to see that Terra Firma would be voluptuous, with breasts that lived up to the promise of her name. Terra Firma was created in the tradition of Frank Frazetta, Harvey Kurtzman, Will Elder, and Robert Crumb. The idea of a beautiful young lady in a bulky spacesuit that disguised her anatomy failed to inspire me, so I conceived of her without one. Apart from the telltale accordion joints that unified the line, she would essentially be wearing nothing but a bright orange coat of body paint. On her back, she would have an anti-gravity backpack that resembled a giant magnet with retro-looking lightning bolts. To my amazement, Eric sculpted Terra courageously. Some would say outrageously, without diminishing her beauty. I loved her side view, too. And for good measure, I threw in an Earthman and called him Jack Asteroid. And Eric sculpted him exquisitely. He added a flair and personality that my drawing did not convey. This is Jack Asteroid's official NASA portrait, and here he is in outer space. Finally, we see the 2 Earth astronauts together, exploring the surface of the moon. The reflection of Terra in the helmet of Jack's spacesuit was fun to do, and thanks to their anti-gravity backpacks, they can rise into the sky and fly together in Earth's atmosphere. Now Eric explained to me that there was room in Jack and Terra's mold for 2 new heads. Could I come up with 2 new female figures by just changing their heads? And so I made more sketches in an attempt to add more females to the line. These are a few I tried. Quicksilver, who I conceived as being made of molten mercury, might get a sister. Her name would be Moltina, and 2 new heads on Terra and Inferno's body is all it would take to create her and her brother. Astronautilus might acquire a friend from beneath the seas of Neptune. I called her Poseida. And Mistron could discover his long-lost lover, Desdemona, from the deepest depths of hollow earth. 2 more sketches were selected to generate new heads, and thus 2 new outer space women. The first was Zodiac's daughter, Horoscope. She was originally conceived as a male, but he was so beautiful I decided that he should be a female. As you might notice, I was experimenting with backlighting as a special feature, thus she has glowing eyes. Would you believe that on the planet Saturn she is considered pretty? Now meet Aphrodite, Metamorpho's evil twin transformed himself into a woman. Her name is Metamorpho, spelled backwards, for she is just the opposite of him in every way. She is as mean as her brother Metamorpho is good. Like him, she can morph into anything. Anything nasty, that is. There was an element of tricky backlighting in this figure also. And that completed the outer spacemen up till then. Now Eric also encouraged me to create a second series of custom colors, and so there came about another series of 4 OSM that absolutely glowed. Here is Alpha 11, a variation of Alpha 7, based on a paint variation I did 45 years ago. The figure would have happened then if the outer spacemen had continued. This is the original, painted by yours truly in 1968. The next variation was Fire and Ice Electron Plus. He represents Electron Plus on the frozen planet Pluto in the process of dematerializing. His body is becoming transparent, turning into pure energy, while the orange fire in his chest and weapon continue to glow brightly. The next figure was Blue Angel Commander Comet. He is Comet as we know him, attired in a blue outfit for some purpose yet to be determined. I was determined to inject some visual magic, and that takes place in the helmet. And last was Red Devil Mistron. When the light is right, he radiates a bright red glow. Altogether, they make up the second group of Cosmic Collector's custom colors. Would you believe that for over 30 years I forgot about the outer spacemen? Now, thanks to Gary Schaefer, Matt Dowdy, Eric Treadway, and the 4 Horsemen, they've come back to Earth again. Now, what does the future hold? As of today, there are 4 more outer spacemen on the way. The first is beautiful Aphrodite, Commander Comet's co-pilot from the planet Venus. She has been a long time in the planning, as she struggled to appear in glorious reality. And now she's happening. And there are 2 new Earth astronauts on the way, Luna Eclipse and Zero Gravity. As crewmen on the Starship USA, they are stationed on the dark side of the moon. Luna Eclipse and Zero Gravity pose for their official NASA portraits. Their lunar spacesuits glow with radiant luminosity. Here we see Zero and Luna exploring the moon's secret caves and ancient subterranean cities, illuminated by the life-giving algae Lumino, that still survives and thrives to make life possible in the glowing caves and caverns of the dark side of the moon. And finally, we meet the most awesome outer spaceman of them all, a living descendant of the elder gods, whose name is unpronounceable, Cthulhu Nautilus. This iridescent entity is full of backlit trickery, with a transparent cranium and 3 glowing eyes. His ancestors first visited this planet long before all currently known forms of life began, and they remain in dark, desolate, forbidden places, still hidden from the eyes of man. Do the outer spacemen have a future beyond these coming figures? Only destiny can decide.